Good morning. My name is Cornell William Brooks. I'm the president and CEO of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. I'm proud to serve as CEO of the Institute for Social Justice and equally proud to stand with these mayors and these members of the Assembly in support of one of the most profound economic challenges of our time. Nearly 1 out of every 4 citizens of the state of New Jersey faces what is commonly understood to be a criminal justice challenge, which is in fact a major economic challenge, namely having a criminal record. For the 65 million Americans, 1 out of every 4 adults who have a criminal record, most of whom have never spent a day in jail, a day behind prison bars, who've not committed a violent act, not committed a felony, but who in fact face not a professional inconvenience, an administrative inconvenience, but rather a permanent, long-standing employment barrier, namely that tiny box on the application that poses a seemingly innocuous question: have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime? That tiny box serves as a mountainous, alpine high employment barrier. These mayors, these members of the legislature, stand in solid support for not merely removing the box, but postponing the inquiry about a person's criminal background. So today, we welcome to this podium these mayors from all across the state of New Jersey. The question you may ask yourself is, why mayors? The political theorist Ben Barber wrote a book entitled "If Mayors Ruled the World." Most mayors enjoy a 60–70% approval rating, as opposed to Congress, which currently enjoys an approval rating of 18%. Mayors are regarded as those leaders in our states who are closest to their citizenry, who are regarded as pragmatic, practical, non-ideological problem solvers. So when posed, or rather when facing the question of what to do about criminal records as an employment barrier, we turn to the leaders that people trust to solve problems in a non-ideological, non-left or right, non-Republican or Democratic fashion: the mayors of the state of New Jersey. So this morning, we welcome to the podium, first, Senator Sandra Bolden Cunningham, who has been a leader, a heroic leader, as in a heroine, on an issue that many politicians choose not to face or embrace. She led the fight for the prisoner reentry legislation of 4 years ago, which was called a model for the nation by the New York Times.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Cornell, for that introduction. Before I begin, though, I do have to acknowledge our former governor, Jim McGreevey, who is with us. And as you know, the work that he has done in this regard has just been unbelievable, and we're so thankful to him for everything that he does every day. I do want to thank Cornell and his staff, and of course I thank Mayor Fulop and all of the mayors who are here today to talk a little bit about this very important issue. You will hear from them, and Assemblyman Charles Maynard, who is with us, is actually the chair of Law and Public Safety in the Assembly. He will be hearing this legislation, hopefully within the next week or so. I am just so happy that we're just talking. I'll talk briefly about the legislation. The important thing about this is when we look at the state of New Jersey, we look at all of our urban areas, we see people standing on street corners and we wonder, why are they on street corners? Why don't they have a job? We look at our incarceration rates and we see that people are going back and forth into incarceration. And one of the reasons is because there are no jobs for these people. When I thought about this legislation, I thought about what do we do for people, even those who have never been incarcerated? What do we do for people who want to work and can't get a job because when they fill out an employment application, there is a little box that says, have you ever been arrested? Have you ever had a criminal incarceration? Have you ever been convicted of a crime? And for many of these people, they have to check the box, yes, even though they've never been actually incarcerated. But they check that box and they wait and they wait and they wait. And unfortunately, no one is calling them back saying, come in for a job interview. When we think about our cities and our great state, we talk about how we want to bring new businesses to New Jersey. We want to bring new businesses to Jersey City, to all of the areas that these mayors represent. Well, there are a whole workforce waiting to be hired. There is a skilled workforce that we're not tapping. And that is why this legislation is so important. It is an opportunity, and only an opportunity for a person who may have made an error in judgment, who may have served time, or who may have just paid money. But whatever they did, they paid what was required by the law, and they have paid their dues, and they have an absolute right now to be accepted as productive citizens. We should be doing everything that we can to give these people an opportunity to use their skills, their experience, their knowledge. And that is what this legislation does. It only gives an opportunity for someone to come in to a prospective employer and talk about what they have done in their lives. And then, if the employer wants to hire them, then he or she can ask about their criminal record, and this person can then talk about what I've done in my life and what I am sorry for, but this is what I'm doing in my life now. Before I step back, I do want to say, about 2 years ago, a young man came to my office. He had been incarcerated, had been out of incarceration for 10 years. Since coming out of incarceration, he reunited with his family. He got his college degree. He went to school to get, what is that, black label for boiler licenses or something. Became an active member in his church, worked with the Boys and Girls Club, and he sat down and told me all of these things. He was very articulate, very clean, and I said, wow, he's a great guy. What is it I can do for you? He says, well, I am working at McDonald's, Burger King, wherever I can get a job that they're not going to look at my record. Because after everything that I have done, if I fill out a job application, I don't ever hear back from the possible employer. I never hear back. And I looked at him and I realized, if I cannot help people like this, then I don't need to be sitting in this seat. I don't need to be sitting in this seat. They don't need Sandra Bolden Cunningham here. They can have someone else. Because we've got to help people who need help. That is the reason that I became adamant that we have to pass this legislation. There are so many people like this young man all over our state. Let us give them the opportunity to be productive citizens. Let us do what we all say about America. Let's give them a second chance, because that is the American way. Thank you.
We welcome next to the podium Mayor Stephen Fuller, who is not only a veteran, not only a philanthropist, not only someone who has an enviable record as a business leader at Goldman Sachs, but the mayor of the largest city in the state of New Jersey.
It's a privilege. First, let me say by thanking all the mayors here, and I think the diversity of mayors from across the state of New Jersey really speaks volumes to the importance of this legislation. We have some of the most populated counties in the state of New Jersey represented here, and I also want to just recognize publicly Senator Cunningham and thank her for her leadership. For the better part of 2 years, she has been working on this hand in hand with the business community, with advocates for this legislation, trying to find a balance that is fair and reasonable and that can get this accomplished in a way to really make New Jersey set a standard in this type of initiative throughout the entire country. And I really think that deserves a tremendous amount of commendation, and thank you, Senator, for doing that. One of the credos of the United States Marine Corps is never leave a man behind. And when we were elected and our administration started in July, one of the things we focused on was bridging the gap between the different communities. And one of the first initiatives that we started with was building a second chance program that would really be a model for the state of New Jersey and hopefully eventually for the country. And this is really tied directly to that in many ways, because what we're looking for is opportunities via the workforce to make the city safer and the city stronger. And you can only do that by creating job opportunities. This legislation is important because it will make Jersey City safer, because it will create more job opportunities for the people today that don't have those opportunities. As Cornell mentioned earlier, 65 million people are impacted by this. 1 in 4 Americans have an arrest record. This is not merely a conviction, this is an arrest or conviction. So meaning that if somebody applies for something, they need to check that box if they are being honest with the application process. What we try and teach here is honesty when it comes to our second chance programs. And the irony of the entire process, it's structured in a way today that if somebody is honest with their background, they are actually penalized for it. And what we're trying to do with this legislation is create an environment that somebody can actually have a fair opportunity to compete. Now, this legislation is not a free pass. It doesn't hide somebody's background by any stretch of the imagination. It doesn't force an employer to hire somebody with a background. All it does is give somebody an equal opportunity to compete for a job, and that's really what we're talking about here. So we're here today because we are hopeful that the legislature and the governor are able to pass this in the lame duck session. We think the timing couldn't be perfect. Every day that is delayed hurts New Jersey and Jersey City. So thank you all for coming today, and we urge the immediate passing of the Opportunity to Compete Act.
We welcome next to the podium Mayor Victor DeLuca, who organized this event, brought together these mayors, someone with a record as a philanthropist, having led the Ironbound Community Development Corporation in Newark, someone who's no stranger to these issues.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator Cunningham, for introducing this bill, and to Mayor Fulop for opening up City Hall to have this press conference. When the Institute came to me and said, we'd like you to sign on, I said, sure, it sounds like a good bill. It probably doesn't affect most people in my community. We're 24,000 people. We're a first suburb in Essex County. And then I started thinking and talking to some folks in the community and found that, in fact, it does. It affects our brothers and sisters, our neighbors, our suburban, our rural, and our urban communities. So I wholeheartedly signed on to it and reached out to other mayors, and some of them are here today across the state to lend their support to this. We have a process now, we're getting sign-on from mayors. We have Republican mayors, Democratic mayors, nonpartisan mayors, all signing on. Because as I thought about this initially, I thought about this as the right thing to do. It was a matter of social justice. And as I thought more and talked more, it's also a matter of economic security. As Mayor Fulop said, it's about giving people a chance and opening up doors. And to live in my community, honestly, you need to have a strong income and a good job. And this box bans folks from getting that opportunity. So I want to be here to say to those millions of people across this state, across this country, those people who live in my community who are faced with this, when they have to fill out that application and they see that question, and they know if they answer it truthfully, as Mayor Fulop said, that application could go into the shredder. I want to make sure that we stand firmly behind people in my community and across this state to speak out for their economic justice, economic security. And so that's why I signed on to this. It's about a second chance. It's about opportunity. It's about people across this state, all races and creeds and colors, where you live, whether you own or rent, it affects you. So I'm here to say that with other mayors that we are going to work hard to get this passed. We have an opportunity to get this passed before the end of the year. We're going to do what we can to make this happen. Thank you.
Village President Alex Torpey, who is the Village President of South Orange, an EMT, an expert in emergency management, the founder of Rethink Leadership, a nonpartisan nonprofit that prepares non-traditional candidates for public service.
Thank you, Senator Cunningham, the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and Mayor Fulop for hosting us here. I think one of the things that's important to think about is we are not the only ones having this conversation right now. There are communities across the country trying to find ways to allow folks to have a second chance and to have access to employment opportunities, education opportunities, and the ability to build a family life for their own children that may have been better than the opportunities that they had access to when they were growing up. We're not the only state considering this. There are now over 10 states that have passed similar legislation. Dozens of cities across the country have done this, over 50 at this point. But what's important to think about is that a lot of businesses, many businesses that would be impacted by this, operate in many different cities, and it's important to not just think about this, even though the impact is local, to think about this on a larger level, on a statewide level, and on a national level to make sure that we're setting the right standards for everybody across the country, and that we're allowing people access to job opportunities everywhere, not just in one community. And I think what we need to do is talk about some of the success stories. Talk about some of the folks who have had the second chance to do something and have done incredible things with that. And to try and change the culture and the perception that exists out there right now that people can have that second chance and they can do a lot with it. They can leverage that, they can get a better job, they can get a better education, and they can provide opportunities for their family and their children that sometimes can break the cycle of poverty. And if we can accomplish that, that is something that is a major, major success. Especially considering how many young people and how many people of color end up being discriminated against by nonviolent drug, get convicted of nonviolent drug offenses, and when they go to find that job later in life, and they have that blemish on their record that may have been their fault, may not have been their fault to some degree. We have a criminal justice system that pushes those arrests, pushes those convictions, pushes mandatory minimums and prison sentences, and then that same system that discriminates against people later in life when they're trying to find a job. And to me, that isn't justice. And I think to the other mayors that are here and the folks that have been leading the charge on this for years in the state legislature in New Jersey, that isn't justice. And whatever we can do to break that will be a success. So I'm here to lend my support as a mayor and as a citizen, and however I can, with other mayors and with other folks who are interested in helping people have second chances, to do whatever we can to allow that. And I would thank the leadership in the state for pushing this forward, and hopefully we'll be at a point soon where we know that that promise of a second chance that we believe so fundamentally in this country and in this state is actually a reality, and that we're actually walking the talk. Thank you.
Mayor Antonia Ricigliano, the first woman mayor of Edison Township, someone who stands as a solid voice for fiscal responsibility, whose one of her first acts in office was to cut her own salary. So fiscal responsibility is something she stands for as a matter of personal example and policy.
Good morning. Senator Cunningham, Mayor Fulop, Governor McGreevey, and everyone that's here today. This particular bill, Senate Bill 2586, really is a starting point. Understanding that too often youngsters or people have youthful indiscretions, and sometimes, particularly the young, because they lack maturity, make hasty decisions that they learn to regret later in life. But they're not criminals. If they don't check that box, and it is found out that they have a criminal background, they are automatically fired from most jobs for not being truthful. So it is important that this bill be moved forward and be adopted and become the law here in New Jersey and further across the land. What we as elected officials know, there is a definite economic reason for allowing people that second chance to get back into the job market. If not, aren't we pushing them to a possible life of crime? And that, to me, is even a greater distortion of what is going on. People need to be able to live, to support their families, and what better way than have a meaningful job, some way to support themselves and their families so that they can restore their good name and become productive members of this society. This is what we need, and in this small way, I am so happy to be a part of this initiative. I am, among everyone else, urging Governor Christie to sign this bill, and hopefully everything passes and we could get it done in this year, 2013. Thank you.
Mayor Jamel Holley, who is the youngest mayor ever elected to the borough of Roselle. He's been recognized by the Network Journal magazine for his contributions to the African American community.
Governor, thank you so much for being with us. I know you've been at the forefront of this issue for a very long time. To Senator Cunningham, thank you so much for leading this along with my great senator, Senator Lesniak, and to the members of the legislature. Thank you so much for standing with us as well, and to the great mayors I work along with every day. This is all about opportunity. This is all we're talking about here, is giving someone an opportunity to get back into the workforce. One of the great things since I've been mayor in Roselle is that we created Roselle First, which is a reentry program where we allow ex-offenders to come into our office to have a one-on-one approach, to have conversation and talk about opportunities that are out there for working opportunities for them. And we have had, if you looked at our numbers, we have had such a tremendous success rate. 54% the people who have walked through our door have been employed over the last year and a half since we have started this program. And all we say to them is that if we give you an opportunity, you take it. If Walmart, if the United States government can ban the box, why can't the state of New Jersey ban the box? I'm glad to be joined with this great team behind me here, and I think that with the forces that we have here, that the governor, I believe, if he wants to deal with Senator Cunningham, he will sign this bill. So thank you all for being with us this morning. And
we also want to recognize the presence of Assemblyman Maynard, who's also been a voice on these issues.
Good morning. Let me also say to the senator and to the mayors that here, I am happy to be a part of such a great initiative. Like was said earlier, we have so many of our young children out there making mistakes and decisions that can haunt them for the rest of their life. This bill being put in place can give them the opportunity to better themselves. And that's something that we're not looking at. And I'm hoping that we're going to move forward on this bill. And as chairman of Law and Public Safety, I can honestly stand here and say to you that not only will I become a prime sponsor of the bill, I will make sure that that bill comes through my committee and pass, and I will work very hard to make sure that it passes on the assembly floor. This is not just an opportunity, this is truly a second chance. It's a great bill, and I truly believe that it's going to pass during lame duck, and I thank you.